Wow, another shower thoughts video. Who would have guessed? Not like the last two got a million views or anything. Look, I'm just trying to make people smile, or something. You know, people say that a child's laughter can light up your home. Unless it's 3 AM and you don't have a kid. But you can't escape reality sometimes, even in your dreams. For some reason, while we're asleep, our brain makes up stories only to get scared of them and then wake us up, which seems really counterintuitive. In nightmares, how does your body replicate the feeling of falling from a building when you've never actually fallen like that before? I talk about dreams a lot and how much weird stuff happens in them. But have you ever really considered the thought that you've probably done some really weird stuff in somebody else's dream at some point? They probably don't remember it though. I mean, I really don't remember any of my dreams. How many dreams can you actually remember right now? You've lost thousands of days of your memory, and that information will most likely never return to your mind. So, is what you actually remember about your life the true story? It all boils down to information, data, numbers. Speaking of numbers, 11% is both 1% and 10% more than 10%. The 60s were now 60 years ago. We're also as close to the 70s in the past as we are to the 70s in the future. Why does saying I'll be there in 18 minutes sound super specific, but saying I'll be there in 15 minutes sounds super generic? Your parents are more closely related to monkeys than you are. Something cooler though is that every single one of us has ancestors who were alive at the same time as every other human that has ever existed. We've fallen off a bit though. You know, us being attracted to people that wear glasses is kind of backwards when you consider natural selection. But you know, it doesn't really matter. Humans aren't immortal. The heart is basically a timer counting downwards until your death. Someone, somewhere, is listening to the last song they'll ever hear, or watching the last movie they'll ever watch, or getting the last haircut they'll ever receive. And there's really no way of knowing. There's a chance that the last picture of yourself you took could also end up being the one that is used for your obituary. Your life could end at any moment. It's not super often that you publicly hear about hitmen, so this either means that there aren't many of them, or that they're really, really good at their jobs. You know, how famous do you have to actually be assassinated as opposed to just being murdered? Like, am I not important enough? But if you are murdered, don't worry. Someone thought you were important enough to not exist anymore. So you really did mean something to someone. You lived a great life. Or maybe you didn't. Some people are optimists, others are pessimists. You know, they usually ask, are you a glass half empty or a glass half full person? Well, the easiest way to answer it is this. Did you pour water in or out of it? Or maybe it wasn't even filled with water to begin with. If things are going bad, a drink always helps. When you're drinking any alcoholic drink, both you and the drink get drunk. No matter how many failures you have in life, you're still on track to become the world's oldest person. And once you claim that title, you keep it for life. If you want to stay in the running to become the world's oldest person, you need to be healthy. But isn't being healthy technically just the slowest possible way of dying? You know, you spend your entire life collecting people for your funeral. You have no idea if you've lived 20% of your life or 90% of your life. It's weird to think about if you're closer to your birth or your death right now. Life isn't really a journey, it's more of a mission. Birthday cakes explain life pretty well. You start off not knowing what a birthday cake is, and then you figure it out. So you start getting excited for the days where you get birthday cakes. But then eventually you realize you can go out and buy your own birthday cake whenever you want. But then you realize you should probably stop eating so much cake because it's pretty unhealthy for you. Until one day you forget when your own birthday is, and cake is the last thing on your mind. You know, birthdays seem pretty simple, but they can get kind of confusing. Your first birthday is technically your second birthday, and since a baby's age is only counted after being born, is a fetus that is still inside the womb technically a negative age? Anyway, you know 3D printers? You know, you have to model what you want on a computer screen, make sure everything looks good, and then eventually you go and print it out. Well, when someone's pregnant, you go from being viewed on an ultrasound monitor to being printed in the operating room. Pretty much humans are literally 3D printers. Humans aren't much different from the technology that we use. I mean, we made it. Your bed is just a wireless charger that takes anywhere from 5 to 10 hours to fully recharge a specific model of human. A lot of people have the same alarm set that you do, so there's tons of people that have the same exact reaction as you do every single morning at the same time. Your alarm is technically your life's theme song, because it starts every new episode every day. But not gonna lie, how often do you actually wake up fully recharged? Phones and computers work perfectly fine when they're on like 30% battery. It would be really nice if humans worked the same way. But we don't. We're different. Humans are the only species that decided that water was too boring of a beverage to keep us alive. We need food to survive, just like so many other animals. By the way, when you bite down on something, you're actually biting up. Have you ever thought about the fact that your belly button is technically your old mouth? Maybe you have, but I bet you've never thought about the fact that you can go the rest of your life without eating. Or you could just eat something you're extremely allergic to, a lethal dose if you will. A lethal dose of something is also technically a lifetime supply if you think about it. Like if you're allergic to peanut butter, just eat a bunch of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But wait, the definition of sandwich is just an item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with some filling in between. So, by definition, loaves of bread that you buy are really just massive bread sandwiches. We literally have to do it, but somehow we've turned liking to eat into a personality trait, just like everything else. The most obvious example is hair. Hair is annoying though. You've probably never thought about the fact that we can't hear our hair growing. We can hear music though. Sheet music is just a sound recipe. Music remixes are kind of like sound photoshops, if that makes sense. Just like turning up the volume on something is kind of like zooming in, but with sound. Our senses have turned out to be pretty useful. You can shut your eyes, close your mouth, cover your ears, pinch your nose, but you can't block out your sense of touch. Your senses are meant to protect you, and your sense of touch helps prevent you from doing things that cause harm to your body, like cutting off your limbs. No one will ever be able to chop off both of their hands with a knife. Please don't try it. Here, try this instead. Okay, how would you pronounce this? You probably said 0.6, but in reality, it's 0.60, but no one ever says that. You know, we take the easy way out a lot. We put in the least amount of effort needed into things, especially talking, texting in specific. If your is commonly written as your, then shouldn't your be written as your? Has communication gotten better or worse? We're more connected than ever, but for some reason we put the least amount of effort into communicating with each other. You know, we can communicate with our future selves in many ways, notes, videos, and so on, except we can't actually see ourselves. However, we can see our past selves, except we can't communicate with them in any way. It's kind of frustrating. Speaking of the past, remember Flappy Bird? That was 7 years ago. God, I'm old. Anyway, since we're talking about the past, you're still it from a game of tag like 10 years ago. But let's go back even further than that, like really far. Since a meteor killed off a dominant species on Earth millions of years ago, aren't we technically living in a post-apocalyptic world right now? The same thing could actually happen again. NASA is tracking tens of thousands of near-Earth asteroids that could cause harm to the entire planet. But you're more likely to die from your cat than an asteroid, but I'm sure you'll still think they're super cute. If cats go meow and dogs go woof and ducks go quack, what's the generalized sound that humans make? Dogs are able to legally pee in more places than we are, which is funny. But here's the most depressing thing in the entire video. Most dogs have siblings they'll never see again. There's a lot that we humans don't see though. There are probably areas of Google Earth that no one has ever really zoomed into. Also, if you look at yourself in a mirror from 5 feet away, aren't you technically seeing yourself from 10 feet away? Since light takes time to travel, you're also technically looking at yourself slightly in the past. Being able to see the future would be great. Actually, do caterpillars know they're going to become butterflies, or do they just put themselves in a cocoon while having zero clue what they're doing? Most of us really don't even know what we're doing, we're just out here trying to survive. Your survival in today's world depends on whether or not you can convince people to give you money. Saying, I sold an hour of my life for $15 sounds a lot worse than I make $15 an hour. But that's the reality of the situation. Everything in life just depends on how you look at it. Like, yeah, smoking can be pretty bad. But if cigarette companies cured cancer, cigarette sales would probably increase, which makes everyone happy in the end. You could view stealing as bad, but torrenting things is the most socially acceptable form of stealing, and people do that all the time. Anyway, here's something that blew my mind. You know when people have an audition for something and their friends tell them to break a leg? I just realized they say that because they hope you end up in the cast. It all makes sense now. It's crazy how things can be interpreted differently just based off of how you say it. Saying, have a nice day to someone sounds super friendly and is pretty normal. But saying, Enjoy your next 24 hours sounds threatening and will probably have them on edge for the rest of the day. Just a few words can cause a person to go from being completely calm to driving them insane. Like this. The entropy of the universe is always increasing. This means that things tend to go from being ordered to being disordered. Once you clean your room, it's basically guaranteed that it's going to eventually end up dirty again. So, even though there's chaos on Earth, like almost having another world war, or the Amazon burning down that everyone just forgot about, or the fact that there was an entire continent on fire, the fact that there's a new plague, again, it actually all makes sense. Because nothing was supposed to stay orderly to begin with. Alright, maybe I'm thinking too much at this point. And I forgot to bring a towel. Some shower thoughts can give you existential dread, and that's okay. But sometimes, thinking can be really good. You'd be surprised at the kind of things you can learn with just the smallest bit of effort. And that's why this video was sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the #1 place to go to learn about everything math, science, and computer science related. It's super interactive, with every course having code to write or puzzles to solve. They're constantly adding new courses and finding new ways to challenge your brain. For example, they just added a new Calculus in a Nutshell course, and they walk you step by step through the fundamentals. In their new Introduction to Neural Networks course, they literally show you a neural network in action, and then walk you through how everything works. They show you what you're learning, and provide visual examples to really solidify your understanding. I find this a lot easier than learning through books or YouTube videos, as each course is tailored specifically to making things simple to understand. With over 60 courses, you are basically guaranteed to learn something new. If this sounds fun and you're interested, head over to brilliant.org/aperture for a free trial. The first 200 of you to check it out will get 20% off of a premium subscription and will allow you to take every single course that Brilliant has to offer. You'll be supporting my channel and your future at the same time.